Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where Disney has really needed a win. I mean, they have Lilo and Stitch, but otherwise, it's been one of their worst years ever. But you know who else is having a bad time right now? Hollywood in general, coming off of one of the worst Octobers in the history of the industry. But yeah, Disney's really leading that loser brigade, or at least they were, because they got a big win this weekend with Predator Badlands. Oh my gosh, what a story. It has the highest opening weekend for the franchise ever, with a 4 in front of it. A 4! Oh, we're going to break that all down. But also, I want to point out that critics gave it the highest Rotten Tomatoes score in franchise history. But even more important than that, it has the highest audience score, both Rotten Tomatoes and Cinema Score, in the franchise's history. That's particularly important because there was a concentrated effort from toxic hate groups to try and take down the movie. Look, you don't have to like Predator Badlands, but if you're going to make it your whole identity, at least for the next week or so, then you might maybe be a toxic hate channel. All right, so review bombing didn't work. I mean, look how high these, the Cinema Score can't be review bombed, but the fact that the Predator Badlands Rotten Tomatoes audience score has stayed so high, it's amazing. You want to know even something more amazing? It's getting such a good audience reaction that some of the hate content about the movie is getting called out by the viewers of that content. They're like, I think you might have maybe got a little too far this time, because everybody thinks it's great. I mean, even people who don't like everything about it are like, but I have to say otherwise, it's actually a pretty good movie. Is Predator Badlands so good that it might have actually put a crack in the hate that has consumed movies and television since Disney's Star Wars and the whole DC debacle with the Snyderverse? That would be amazing. What if we looked back and we were like, this was the beginning of the end of that hate? Well, at least it shows that the hate can be beaten. It's very exciting. Dan Trachtenberg is now 3 for 3 with Predator films, but this is his first outing at the multiplex. And while he's been working for a long time, his debut feature was almost 10 years ago with 10 Cloverfield Lane, but he didn't direct another movie until coming onto the Predator franchise. What was he doing? Well, he almost did the Uncharted live-action movie, but he walked away from that. That turned out okay. That's interesting, But you know what? It all worked out in the end, because in 2020, he signed on to revitalize the Predator franchise just after Disney had acquired Fox. I don't know why Disney is so good with Fox's franchises and not their own. All right, now talk about matching the right creative with the right franchise. It's movie magic when that happens. And Trachtenberg has big plans for the Predator cinematic universe that now might become a priority for the mouse. Do you recall a little headline that came out of Comic-Con this past summer at the Predator panel? Well, they revealed a post-credit scene, or it's the extended version, of the recent animated movie that ended up on Hulu, Predator, Killer of Killers. There it was revealed that in Yautja Deep Freeze, they not only have Amber Midthunder's character from Prey in suspended animation, but also Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny Glover's characters from the first Predator movie. Maybe those deep freeze containers developed a little bit of a leak. I mean, I'm sure they were thinking of using them in animation, but after the success of this movie, I'd be like, maybe they have a leak and they aged a little bit, and we'll put those actors in the Predator live action. Let's do it. I mean, that's what I'd be thinking if I were a Disney executive, and I'd see if I really trust Dan Trachtenberg at this point. I'd be like, whatever you want to do, Dan. But have you thought of this idea? All right, he must have, because he put the animated versions in. Now, apparently, the reason that scene had to be added later on after the movie's release was because even though they'd animated it, the deals with Schwarzenegger and Glover had not been completed. But then they were, and I wonder what else those deals include. Again, is it just for animation? Or could we, I mean, even if I were Schwarzenegger and particularly Schwarzenegger, he's been trying to stage a comeback since he got himself like semi-canceled. One of the only people I've ever seen claw his way back to a degree. But I'm sure if I were Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's a very strong business person, I'd be seeing these numbers and be like, that is my franchise. Why am I not in it? Be like, number one, that's my group. Let's get back in there. Would you be interested in Schwarzenegger return? I think you gotta bring Danny Glover, but would you be interested in this? All right, so We'll see, right? Predator Badlands, of course, already sets up a sequel, but who's to say? I mean, it's just a little, like, a sequel is a whole movie. So there's lots of things that could happen here. And, I told you that I felt that Trachtenberg was taking inspiration from Guardians of the Galaxy, and that means he needs team members. But while this is all super exciting, we also need to calm down a little bit and listen to what this movie's success is telling us. All right, so this is the most successful Predator movie since 2004's AVP, Alien vs. Predator. I know. And the two films, well, nobody really liked AVP, but still, the two films have two things in common. The first is that, as I'm sure you're all, well, I'm curious if you can guess what I'm going to say. So, because it's pretty obvious if you pay attention. So, they're both rated PG13. Oh, that's the stuff. And nobody has been upset with nobody has felt there's a lack of violence in this film. As I said in my coverage, because it's all aliens and synths, robots, there's no red blood, which I think is how they got away with this rating. That Trachtenberg, the man's a genius. But interestingly, despite that rating, only 11% of Predator Badlands' audience was under 17. And in fact, only 21% of the audience was under 25. Woo! I mean, they haven't had a Predator movie for a while, but, clearly it's an older skewing franchise. For now, let's see what happens. And this is great news, by the way. I'm saying a lot about Dan Trachtenberg, but I want to point out it's very exciting for Elle Fanning as well. This, it's very important for all actors to have a franchise. And she might have just gotten herself one, which is great. And it's very even more unlikely for women to have an action franchise. And these days to accomplish that, with how much hate there is from some male audiences towards any type of female lead, I mean, that's incredible. Dan Trachtenberg's ability to sell female characters to this same fandom, which has a problem with so many of the other female characters that Star Wars and Marvel are serving up to them, really underscores both what Trachtenberg and Fanning have accomplished here. So diversity demos were excellent. Those were very well balanced. And word of mouth for the movie is amazing, because just 10% dropped from Friday to Saturday. That means people on Friday were like, oh my God. And so people on Saturday were like, maybe we should go see it. I mean, I know I got a lot of you to see it. Have you not seen Predator Badlands yet? Are you thinking, maybe I'll go? Well, if you want to see it on a premium screen, you better hurry. Because this very weekend, The Running Man takes over IMAX, and Now You See Me 3 takes over Dolby. They got to build more premium screens, man. And in fact, a little over 50% of this opening weekend for Predator Badlands was driven by premium large format PLF screens. But I think that these very strong audience scores and now the success story headlines about the film, I think that means that even down the line, past theaters, when it gets to digital and then on Hulu, it's going to continue, I think, to grow its audience, which is very exciting. All right, so PG-13, that's one thing they have in common. What's the other one? They're both alien crossovers, baby! Oh, this is so great. Because I prefer the Alien franchise. I think that this movie has made me actually a bigger Predator fan. But I think for a lot of people, it was the Alien connection that got them into Badlands. Was that the case for you? And then did you fall in love with Dick? He's such a great character. But yeah, there's no xenomorph in Badlands, but who's to say there isn't going to be one in the future? I mean, what the thing here was synths and the Weyland-Yutani crossover. Now, with the Alien franchise itself, Alien Earth did not work out. Sadness. I do think, I mentioned in my coverage of Predator Badlands that, Dan Trachtenberg used the technology, the more modern technology from the more recent Ridley Scott Alien movies. And I think that went over better. I think Noah Hawley maybe attached himself to the wrong Alien films that just aren't as popular with the larger fan base these days. Isn't that weird? That we're so far along in these franchises that today's audiences, to them, Alien is Prometheus and Covenant. That is amazing. That blows my mind. What? Michael Fassbender is available, by the way. Why is he not back yet? Put him in the next Predator movie. Oh my God, him and Andy? This is great. I'd be like, okay, just bring a bunch of synths over here. It would be amazing. All right. This movie's getting very crowded. What's your priority for bringing the sequel? What would be your priority for the next Predator franchise? You don't want to get too alien-y. The balance, keeping the balance is important because I trust Dan Trachtenberg. All right, so I don't think we're getting an Alien Earth season 2. I think, Disney is moving ahead with an Alien Romulus sequel, but Fede Alvarez just dropped out as director. So now that's going to be delayed as they try and replace him. Anyway, no matter what happens with the Alien franchise, where over on its own, I do think that when it comes to Predator, they're going to keep at least Alien elements in this franchise. Because you can't deny the 2 movies that did well had PG-13 and Alien crossover. And again, I'm curious as to what you think is going to help the Predator franchise going forward. Because everybody was still happy with part of me feels, could it maybe graduate to R now? Because R-rated movies like Logan and Joker did very well. But I don't know. Everybody was fine with this. And, again, it's 2 for 2 with the PG-13 rating. So I would keep it there. By the way, be sure to subscribe. The holiday movie season is just starting to pick up. And now, thanks to Predator Badlands, people are actually a little bit excited about it. I myself, and I saw a number of people exclaiming this, are like, wait a minute, are movies maybe not bad? So that's encouraging. I'll be covering all these exciting upcoming films. I'll be doing not only reviews, but spoiler reviews, covering their box office. And there's going to be big trailers in front of these movies, which I'll be reacting to, and for the really big ones, breaking them down. So be sure to subscribe for full coverage. Okay, now let's take a closer look at this sexy big number. So yeah, a 4 in front of it. That's actually, by the way, a risky move for Disney. Although the industry is backing that weekend prediction, but it's only a million basically ahead of AVP, making it the biggest opening for the franchise. And so when the Monday final numbers come in, you want that number either to stick or go up by a million or 2. If it dips below AVP, the industry will largely ignore it to try and just keep it positive because the industry is really suffering right now. But that, the hate channels would be like, meh. So let's hope that doesn't happen, because that would be not great. It would be embarrassing if it doesn't stay with a 4 in front of it. So let's see. But if it does, what a gift, especially after Tron Ares underperformed. Both Tron and Predator are franchises with smaller fan bases, and Tron Ares is also a really solid movie. It's not as good as Predator Badlands, but it's an amazing theatrical experience. Again, particularly in IMAX 3D. So this opening for Predator Badlands, also from Disney, which again has a lot of people hating on it right now. Well, what's not similar about these 2 movies? One of them has Jared Leto in it. And I think this success for Predator Badlands just underscores that it was most likely overall Leto who really hurt Tron Ares. So, I feel pretty bullish. If I were a Disney film executive, I'd be like, I can do it. And so I'd be like, maybe I'm not going to give up on Tron, because it's a good movie. I'll be like, I'm going to try again, darn it, but get rid of Jared Leto. What would you do? Would you try another Tron movie, or are you like, it's dead, forget it, it's too niche? I maybe would do a Tron show, maybe a Tron animated show, which would be cheaper. Would you just throw Tron in the trash, especially after they were able to do something with frickin' Predator? All right, so this opening was badly needed for Disney, who, as I said, is having one of their worst years ever, not just at the box office, but with fan and audience reaction and perception of their content. Predator Badlands having a 4 in front of it, although to be fair, Snow White opened with a 4 in front of it, although that's very low for a Disney live action remake. But this puts Predator Badlands in league with Sinners and Weapons. And with these audience scores, Predator Badlands could play really well in theaters all the way through up until Avatar, also from Disney, hits mid-December, the next big sci-fi film. Although, let's see how the reaction is to Running Man this coming weekend. That is a big threat to Predator Badlands because it's a similar audience. And then also Five Nights at Freddy's 2 could also be a little bit of a hiccup. But, let's see. Disney has those long theatrical windows, and word of mouth, again, is very strong. And kudos, again, to Trachtenberg, who kept his budget to just $100 million, while Tron Ares cost more than twice that to make. Worldwide, Predator Badlands is already at $80 million, and all it has to do is top AVP's 172.5 to become, as well as the biggest opening for the franchise, the biggest overall grossing film. And that is very doable, particularly because Alien Romulus opened about the same and got all the way to 350. That's amazing. We had a little bit of a fight about Alien Romulus's box office, and you guys are right. It did do very well, and I'm very excited for Predator. I think I think it would be great if it came in around that. It would, for the Predator franchise, it would be like life-changing. All right, so Disney is just doing really well with these Fox franchises. How are you feeling about the Disney Fox situation? Now, if you're looking for drama at the box office, well, you're going to find it with female-led awards flicks this weekend. Although I want to point out that at the beginning of October, Dwayne Johnson crashed and burned with The Smashing Machine, so it's the men and the ladies that are floundering. But this weekend, it was just the ladies. Jennifer Lawrence seems to have another mother on her hands with some of the worst audience scores anybody's ever seen. These are smack you in the face, maybe make you rethink your life choices, bad audience scores. I mean, like with Mother, I think a lot of people were like, well, she shouldn't have made that movie. But she was dating Darren Aronofsky at the time, and it blinded her to good business career decisions. But what's the excuse this time? It might just be her picking bad projects. It's real bad. It's you know, she can't have this happen. I mean, I think it's really bad it happened twice. But a third time, that would be bad. I mean, people are walking out of this movie, right? I mean, she's friends with Emma Stone, but Emma Stone's doing great with Yorgos Lanthimos. I think a few people don't, like myself, don't like Yorgos Lanthimos, but it's not working out for J-Law, all right? And it's a dismal 8th place debut, despite opening in wide release. And then, but at least that movie's in the top 10. Sydney Sweeney's Christie couldn't even open in the top 10. And that's also in wide release in over 2,000 theaters. Maybe Sweeney shouldn't have blamed women for some of her recent bad press, when who do you think's going to see this movie besides women? I think it's safe to say at this point, after several huge flops, that nobody is interested in Sydney Sweeney, serious actress. And to be honest, she has a real disconnect in the movies she's choosing and the branding she's putting out there. You got to choose Sydney Sweeney. If you want to be a hot babe, if you want to be that type of persona right now, you got to pick movies that match that. And if you want to be a serious actress, then that's how you have to present yourself when you're out and about in the industry. I got to tell you, I think it's pretty obvious the path she should take is hot babe, right? And where's that Barbarella remake she was supposed to do? That seems like the perfect thing for her to do. And instead, she's wasting her time with this other stuff. I don't know how much damage she can take before people are like, people don't want to pay to see Sydney Sweeney movies. And speaking of not willing to pay to see someone in a movie, Jennifer Lawrence she has fans. Her press tour for Dime I Love has gotten a lot of attention. She can't sell any movie tickets, but we'll see if this upcoming Miss Piggy movie helps her. She better be careful. She spent a lot of time saying this past week she was unlikable, and then her movie flops, people walking out. I mean, maybe Disney's like, well, we don't want you to bring down Miss Piggy, maybe. I don't know. It's really bad. It's bad. Also, is that going to take her out of awards contention? I got to say, there was a lot of heat and assumptions that Jennifer Lawrence and Dwayne Johnson would be nominated for Oscars this year. But do they have to be? Just because we thought they were, we can't change our minds, right? I'm seeing a lot of other really great performances this year that people haven't been tipping for a nomination that I think are far more deserving than Lawrence and Johnson. So as an awards voter myself for Critics' Choice, I'm going to try and see if maybe, we can get some other people in there instead. Who do you think deserves a nomination over Jennifer Lawrence or Dwayne Johnson? Or are you still rooting for them? Then as for the overall top 10, there were 2 other new releases this weekend, big weekend at the movies, that got very little attention going into the weekend, but yet still managed to do really well. Well, not really well, but better than a lot of the other movies that opened. Conservative and faith-leaning film Sarah's Oil, look how high up that is, and Nuremberg, solid debuts, and Sarah's Oil has a fantastic cinema score. For some reason, cinema score didn't do one for Nuremberg. I saw Nuremberg yesterday. I saw a screener as a Critics' Choice member. And while it's a little long, it's 2.5 hours, and Rami Malek, it's hard to believe he won an Oscar. He's really chewing the scenery. I mean, Leo Woodall delivers one of the best monologues I've ever seen. I was like, maybe I should nominate him for Best Supporting. And then Rami Malek has a reaction that seems like a spoof of serious movies. It was like really bad. I mean, honestly, I think someone sort of pulled Rami Malek aside and said, you're getting really embarrassed and creamed out there, man. You got to step up your game. You're getting outacted by Leo Woodall. With all due respect to Leo Woodall, he's apparently a really good actor. And then also, I have to say, I was very impressed with Russell Crowe's performance as well. I was reminded, I was like, you know what? I remember how good he was in Gladiator. Russell Crowe can act. The film is very moving and informative. It's certainly not the first movie about Nuremberg. There have been some great movies about Nuremberg. But this one is very obviously drawing parallels to some things that are happening today. And I think that, no matter where you stand politically, I think it's an important warning for everybody to hear. So you don't necessarily have to see it in theaters, but when it hits digital, which I suspect shall be pretty soon, I strongly urge you to check it out. Really. The fact that I'm even considering voting for it for awards, these Leo Woodall and Russell Crowe is an example of actors that maybe deserve to be in the conversation, more than some of the people that just should be in the awards conversation. Meanwhile, both of Mason Thames' current films in theaters are doing shockingly well. 9% drop for Regretting You in its third weekend, and just 36% drop for Black Phone 2, which is now on digital? That's amazing. Mason Thames' agent, I'm sure, is able to do an awful lot with this and is making calls and sending emails and getting him. I'll be very excited to see what Mason Thames does next, aside more How to Train Your Dragon movies. Begonia, it's not a breakout hit, but it's respectable. Although I think we all know, as does Emma Stone, that it's time for her to at least take a break from Yorgos Lanthimos. I think people have gotten a little tired of that, and except for the hardcore fans of it. And Springsteen, it's not totally embarrassing itself. And I still believe strongly that movie will really shine once it gets to digital and streaming. Are any of these movies maybe making you take a second look at them? As they do a little better than maybe expected? You're like, maybe I shouldn't have dismissed that film. Maybe I should watch it. Moving over to streaming, starting with Nielsen per usual for mid-October. Yep, it's time to discuss Peacemaker. A lot of you already tweeted me this headline when these Nielsen charts actually drop on Thursday, even though we discussed them on Movie Math on Sunday. And people were like, oh my God, did you see the Peacemaker finally charted? I did! There it is on the very bottom, but it made it. It just got in with its season 2 finale, and it certainly enjoyed a sweet binge bump as all episodes were then available. This is exactly what happened with HBO's other DC show, Penguin, only charting at the very end once the final episode for the season dropped and the whole season was available. Although Penguin was really helped by all the awards that it won, and I don't think Peacemaker's going to win any awards. I want to be fair, I enjoyed some of Peacemaker's episodes. And for a moment, James Gunn really had me with that episode 6. And then he lost me with 7 and 8. And I really feel the big problem was that he oversold it. If he had just admitted that it's a niche show with niche aspirations within the franchise, I think it would have done him in the show a big favor. But he can't do that. He's been insisting that Peacemaker is this big show for a while, even though I told him it wasn't with season 1. And he got so upset with me. All right, so I've seen a few Gunn supporters trying to argue that this is because HBO doesn't have a lot of subscribers maybe, and this is the best an HBO show can do. But that's ridiculous. That's poppycock. I hope if you see comments like that, you go and go and reply to them, okay? And say, what about House of the Dragon and The Last of Us and White Lotus that not only chart throughout their seasons, but make the overall chart, not just the originals chart. So that really frustrates me to see people try and pass that off. It's so annoying. All right, so yeah. Well, again, I appreciated aspects of Peacemaker season 2. And I have to say, I'm glad I watched it, right? There's clearly room for improvement. In every corner of DC. Superman box office could have been better. Peacemaker ratings could have been better. And will be interesting because the next 2 DC projects are not from James Gunn. Although, to be fair, he is overseeing them as the head of DC, but he's not creatively leading the charge. We have Lanterns on HBO and Supergirl hitting theaters. And it'll be interesting to see how they perform compared to James Gunn's own projects. Better, the same, or worse, maybe. I'm very curious. What's your bet, right? We should be getting our first look at both of these projects very soon, probably in December. And I have to say, I'm very excited. They're both 2 projects I'm very excited about. Back to Nielsen, though, Monster is still a monster in the ratings department, even though everybody agrees that season 3 sucks. But boy, people sure love this franchise, which is why Netflix is already filming the 4th installment. But otherwise, on this overall chart, it's very much dominated by older acquired shows. So not a lot of new content in here, which is, I think, a little frustrating. So for the services. But as for the originals chart, Halo, it's warmed over. That was canceled in 2024. But now that it's on Netflix, it continues to find an audience. In fact, it's going higher up this chart. That's amazing. To think that cast and those creatives went through such hell with the fans and the press, only for them suddenly to get a reprieve, although nobody's really talking about it, which is also interesting. People love cooking shows, right? And there's Boots. I know a lot of you, that's really connected for you. And while it's a smaller hit for Netflix, at least it's charting, which a lot of other shows can't do. Although Netflix is always helped by the fact they drop all their seasons at once, right? Netflix is in such a weird place right now. Should they maybe be more in the theatrical space? Should they do better? Is weekly better for them instead of these parts? I got to tell you, I don't think parts are working. We'll talk about it soon. We'll have more context to talk about it. As for the movies chart, it continues to be pretty sad compared to the other two charts. And K-pop Demon Hunters is back on top with Keira Knightley's Netflix movie right behind it, but like with a little over half the viewership only. Then, over on Netflix's charts for just last week, Nobody Wants This must be an extremely cheap show to make. And if you watch it, you know that it is. Very cheap show. I think their biggest expense is surely salaries for the talent. Because they only have moderate viewership and a lot of negative headlines this time, but it's still just got a season 3 renewal. I'm actually a little miffed about that because there are other shows that didn't. All right, but I guess, they played the Hollywood game. It's a cheap show to make and it gets some people to watch it. Would you watch a season 3? I don't know if I would watch a season 3. I thought season 2 was pretty bad. But I don't think The Witcher is getting renewed for a season 5, right? I mean, and I sure hope Liam Hemsworth, by the way, is getting paid a lot of money to embarrass himself like this. I think so few people are watching it. Maybe he's not even that embarrassed. But it's really bad. Selling Sunset, I do think it might hurt his career, though. It's pretty bad. The comparison is not kind to him. Selling Sunset but he really wasn't working. All right, so Selling Sunset continues to be a solid performer for Netflix on season 9 at this point, while Boots, The Diplomat, and Monster are also holding up week to week. And look at Stranger Things season 1 down there at the bottom. Ooh, audiences are warming up as they get ready for season 5, where part 1 of 3 is just 2.5 weeks away. That's right, you're 2.5 weeks away from the first 4 episodes of the final season. All right, as for movies, wow, in its first full week on these charts, House of Dynamite grew substantially, going up 10 million views from last week. I watched it. I'm one of the people who decided to check it out. I really needed something to watch, and I wanted to watch something recent. And I have to say, for the most part, it's a really good movie until the end, where it doesn't have an ending, and then you get really upset. But the beginning was, until the ending, it was quite good. K-pop Demon Hunters is still going strong, but I think this Edward Berger movie is an interesting case. And I would say maybe it's Colin Farrell's fault, but Colin Farrell has, he can have a small, moderate hit, So Edward Berger, of course, is the very, hot German director of All Quiet on the Western Front and Conclave, right? But this is a big miss for him with the new Netflix movie Ballad of a Small Player. The critic and audience scores are horrible, right? And as you can see, nobody's even trying it. And I have to say, this is my theory, is this the movie that cost Edward Berger the new upcoming Bond movie? Because he was in the running. And when you're being considered for a film, even though your latest film hasn't been released, surely new Bond producers, Amy Pascal and David Heyman, particularly considering the subject matter here and him being in Macau and the casinos, very Bond, a little Bond-like, right? I'm sure they took a look at this, got an advance copy, and they were probably like, whew, this stinks. Don't hire him for Bond. So that to me is fascinating that Edward Berger did such. By the way, Conclave is an amazingly well-directed film. I actually didn't like All Quiet on the Western Front very much. I thought it was kind of a softball. But I do wonder if that's what happened. As for digital with Apple's charts, wow, look at this reprieve. Speaking of reprieves, for Good Fortune, number 1. This actually pleases me. I thought this was an awful movie to watch in theaters, although I had a very bad theater experience when I went. The movie theater was insanely cold. I actually had to leave during the movie and ask them to turn down the air conditioning. And then the food I had was really bad too. So maybe it's better than I recall. It was not worth seeing in theaters, but I think it's probably a pretty solid watch at home. And I think the message of the movie is so important and so timely. I'm glad it's reaching people. I mean, I hope people watch it till the end to get the message, but I'm glad that people are seeing this movie. Because again, as I've told you, even though I didn't like it, I have been referencing an awful lot lately in conversation about how, about society. All right, so anyway. All right, then Black Phone 2, as we discussed, doing very well on digital and in theaters. And Universal's release strategy is really cooking. They're able to capture two markets, right? The people who want to go to the theater, but the people who want to stay home and watch it on digital. And they're able to do that at the same time. That's incredible that they can, that they don't lose the theatrical audience once they put these things on digital. As for Disney, which insists on those long theatrical windows, it's pretty good for Fantastic Four that even though it's now available on Disney Plus, it's still able to be in the top 10 here, where people have to pay for it a la carte. And then the Smashing Machine, just hitting digital, is clearly having a hard time attracting audiences here as well. Mission Impossible Final Reckoning in F1, still in the charts. It's been months now. That's incredible. Ka-ching. So yes, the holiday season is right around the corner, and Hollywood is finally starting to ramp up their offerings. This is the content that is trying to get a head start actually on Thanksgiving, because there's a lot of stuff coming out for Thanksgiving. So they're trying to beat the rush. All right, so this coming weekend in theaters, you've got both The Running Man and Now You See Me 3. And as I said, Running Man gets IMAX and Now You See Me 3 gets Dolby. But only for 1 week, because then it's wicked time. All right, while on digital on Tuesday, there's Roof Man. That should do very well. And as for streaming movies, there's a lot here. On Wednesday, Kevin James and Alan Ritchson team up for a Prime Video action comedy. I expect that to do extremely well. While Netflix has a new Christmas movie, that's a pretty good cast. I'm actually a pretty big Oliver Hudson fan. He's very funny. Did any of you ever watch that sitcom he had with Patrick Warburton and David Spade? That was really funny. And as well as an in-depth Eddie Murphy documentary. Then on Friday, Netflix drops animated movie In Your Dreams, and if it weren't for K-pop Demon Hunters, this would be their big awards play this year. They're pushing both, actually, but I think In Your Dreams is getting eclipsed by K-pop Demon Hunters. We'll see what happens. But In Your Dreams is expected to get an Oscar nomination for Best Animated Feature. Also on Friday, Disney Plus has the Jonas Brothers Christmas comedy. They're really hot right now with their tour. I got to see them, so that's making me want to watch their Christmas comedy because I really enjoyed seeing them when they were at MetLife Stadium. And Apple TV has LGBTQ documentary Come See Me in the Good Light. With shows, Palm Royale is back with season 2 starting on Wednesday. I got screeners for this. Couldn't get past the first episode. Which is a shame, as I liked season 1 so much. It's very experimental, at least episode 1 is. Maybe I'll go back and revisit it. While on Thursday, Netflix has The Beast in Me. Then Friday, Prime Video drops the entire season of a show called Malice, while Disney Plus has Lego Avengers. And that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And as the holiday season fast approaches, what movies and shows are you the most excited about? Share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.